is the Revisionary Podcast with your host, Juan Carlos. The Revisionary Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Revisionary Podcast. And as always, I'm your host, Juan Carlos. So, if this is your first time listening, the way this works is we bring on guests, usually comedians, who tell a nonfiction story about their lives in which they wish things had gone a little bit differently. Afterwards, I give them an opportunity to retell the same exact story, except this time they can change any facts or details about the story that they would like. And I'm really excited because it's June. Like, we're finally here. I mean, Memorial Day weekend just passed, which, thank you to all of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. I really appreciate that. And also, I know that a lot of people consider Memorial Day to be the unofficial start of summer. So I'm really excited the summer's here. The weather's going to be beautiful. The sun's out. And it's just one of my favorite times of year. So let's celebrate. This week, I'm actually going to speak with Camille Theobald. And I'm really excited to get to know her because she was actually someone who I was introduced to through Madeline Smith, who you guys remember from an earlier episode, who's our editor, Phil's wife. So shout out to Phil. Speaking of which, I should say this. I don't give Phil enough credit, but this podcast, and I say this often, really would not work without Phil. So thank you again, Phil, for all that you do. You are really the glue that puts this all together so that it all works perfectly. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get Camille on the line. Hello, Camille. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the Revisionary Podcast.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to?
So in the last month or so, what was it? Like October, I started a podcast called SL, UT Housewives for Salt Lake City, Utah. That's an inside joke there. And it's a podcast all about the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So me and Jasmine Garza, we're both from Utah, moved to New York to become stand-up comics. And we are like very excited about Utah having a reality show that's not about Mormonism. So, and of course, and like we're Real Housewives fans. So, our podcast is all about that. So like the last 2 months have just been like constant, like watching Real Housewives and memes and, all of that. That's been my big thing lately.
So is it extra enjoyable when you're like watching Housewives and you're like, it's okay, this is for my career, I'm doing work?
Exactly. Yes. I'm like, I feel so productive. Yes. I feel very productive while watching TV.
So It's funny. This is a little embarrassing, but I'm going to admit to this. So you guys could all hear that I screw up sometimes too. I had no idea that you were the person running this podcast. I've been seeing it all over Facebook, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool. I might actually check that out. I had no idea it was yours.
Yeah. How cool. I'm glad you saw it.
Yeah. I mean, it's because, I think to be fair, I did see it because of Jasmine. She, like, I've seen her post it and stuff like that. So, I didn't even make the connection. I was just this very moment. I was like, wow, I'm an idiot. So here we are. Yeah,
it's awesome. I definitely didn't grow up rich in Salt Lake City, so It is a little different because they're doing stuff that like I didn't do when I lived there. But it is cool to see the representation and just like some of the culture stuff that people don't know about. People just assume, oh, Utah Mormon, that's it. That's all that happens there. So it's kind of cool.
What are the like nice parts of Salt Lake City? Like, and like, the only reason I asked is because I guess when I think Salt Lake City, I think of like a desert, and I've never been to Utah, I've never been to Nevada, but I'm imagining like just a big dry desert. So what do the nice parts look like?
So southern Utah is a desert, and northern Utah, it's like you're in a different country. It's crazy. It still feels very dry, but northern Utah, the Rockies come through. So it's like so many mountains. You're surrounded by mountains. You know which way you're facing because of which mountain you're looking at. Okay. That's how we knew north, south, east, west. Okay. And so like Salt Lake City is actually in a valley. So you're just surrounded by mountains at all times. And it's beautiful. Like the snow is beautiful and like clean and white. And like you just jump in it, and here in New York, you do not touch the snow. You do not touch it. But in Utah, it's like powdery and it's beautiful. Like winter is one of the best times there.
It's funny hearing you say about how like we don't touch the snow in New York, because I remember growing up in New York, when it landed, when snow fell on that first day, we would go out and play tackle football. Like that was the moment. And you had exactly 6 hours of viable snow to play in before it's done.
Yeah, it melts so fast here. It's sad.
Oh, yeah. That was my concern, and not at all the fact that, it turns yellow.
It gets peed on.
Dirty.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it's skiing. Skiing's like the big thing, and hiking. There's some really beautiful hiking trails. Nature is like one of the main reasons to live in Utah. And I guess now they have some big tech industry.
Really?
Like
Interesting.
So a lot of startups are there.
Interesting. Last question I'll ask you on Utah, and then we can move off. Is it like how are the alcohol laws? Like, are they very strict?
No, they're actually not as strict as other counties, like in Arkansas and stuff. So, in places in the South and stuff, they still have dry counties. In Utah, to my knowledge, there are no dry counties in Utah. You can buy alcohol throughout. It's just all of the liquor stores are state owned.
Got it.
So they found a way to make money off of all the alcoholics, the state, the government, so you can't buy alcohol on the weekends. Yeah. Maybe Saturday, but definitely not Sunday. It's not open on Sundays. And this law is actually recently changed, but for a while at gas stations and grocery stores, you couldn't buy a beer that was more than 3% alcohol. But now I think it's all regular percent alcohol, but there's definitely no grocery stores with wine. Like you got to go to the liquor store to get wine and all that stuff. Yeah.
That's interesting, because I know there are places in this country where you can literally buy liquor at Target. So.
Yeah.
I remember
New York has those weird rules though. Like only one store of a chain can have it. So that's why there's only one Trader Joe's with a wine section. It's interesting.
My favorite weird alcohol rule about New York is that I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that they have to stop serving alcohol at like 4 a.m. or something like that, maybe 5, but it's like around there.
Yeah.
And then they can't resume again until like, was it 6 a.m. or something like that? 8?
No, like
8 in the morning, I think is what it is.
You can't serve it till noon the next day.
Really? I thought it was 8 that you could like go back to buying alcohol.
Oh, maybe in a store, but not at a restaurant. When I worked at a restaurant, we were not allowed to give anyone alcohol until like, I believe it was noon or 11 a.m. Like it had to be like brunch time,
Really? I feel like I'm going to, you know what? Never mind. We don't need to discuss the reasons I need to go to meetings.
Don't tell on those restaurants. Okay?
I did not mention any names. I did not say anything. So moving on. Camille, the stage is yours. Go ahead and tell us your story.
All right. So my story, I just want to give you a heads up, is about discovering that I was bisexual. And so just putting that out there for anybody who doesn't like sex conversations. Okay, I'm not going to go into detail, but there is going to be some discussion. So when I was young, probably around 7 or 8, I don't know how common this is, but I know several young women who had the same thing where it's like, that's kind of when I started getting like tingly feelings when there was a sex scene on the television, like when watching a movie and all of a sudden there was a sex scene and my dad's like, don't look. So like I started becoming kind of curious around that time. And so, you play doctor with your friends, that's normal. And around 4th grade, my best friend, let's call her Felicia. Mm-hmm. That was her real name, but her and I, we went on the sleepover. We went to the sleepover, like a bunch of girls. And this one girl was like, I like to practice on my pillow for when I get a boyfriend. And, like girls around this time are like, I want a boyfriend. Like we're talking about boyfriends and talking about when I get married, this is what's going to happen. Like all these fantasies, right? And all of that. So it was brought up practicing. And then her and I had talked about it. And then we were like, why don't we practice on each other? Practice for boys. And so her and I kissed and practiced for boys, right? And I had a huge crush on her. Okay. I thought she was beautiful. I liked her a lot, but I also knew you're not supposed to like girls are not supposed to like girls.
Right.
Especially in Utah, very Mormon, very religious. My mom at that time, I think, just started to become kind of religious again. She grew up Mormon, but wasn't really active or religious for a while. And then started to kind of go to a non-denominational Christian church. So these are things I've been hearing is like, girls aren't supposed to kiss girls, all of this stuff. But we were just practicing, so it didn't count. Okay. And so, and it was 4 boys. And so for a couple sleepovers, we would practice. Okay. And I really liked her. And one Monday after a weekend where we had a sleepover, she came up to me and she said, so we can't play anymore. We can't play together anymore. And I was like, why? And she's like, well, my dad saw us and he says, I'm not allowed to ever go to your house and you're not allowed to go to my house. So we can't be friends.
Wow.
And I was just like heartbroken. Okay.
Yeah.
Like this was my best friend and also my big crush.
Right.
And I just remember being so sad that day. And I just have this memory of standing in the middle of, it's kind of like a big parking lot, this asphalt area where everyone would line up for recess. We would all line up before walking in, I guess, because they needed to make sure we were all there still. And I was standing in that area looking at the playground and I just went, oh my God, I'm a lesbian. And, in my kid brain, that meant I was going to hell, because that's everything I've been taught.
Remind me, how old were you again at this time?
9.
Okay. So, at 9, you knew what a lesbian was. Okay.
I guess. I don't know. Yeah. I must have heard this word somewhere. But I didn't know anybody who was openly gay. I had never met anybody who was openly gay. But I think I'd seen it on TV somewhere.
Okay.
I watched a lot of TV. I watched Seinfeld. So, I feel like they must have talked about it at that point.
Can I tell you something really embarrassing really quickly here? Just to bring a little levity to the situation. At 9 years old, I too thought I was a lesbian. But that's because I thought that lesbian meant you were attracted to women. So I remember going around telling people that I was a lesbian at 9. And so I remember my friend's older cousin turns to me. I remember Melvin. He was like maybe 6, 7 years older. He goes, "You're not a lesbian. You're just straight." I was like, "No, I'm a lesbian. It means I like women. I like women. I'm a lesbian."
Hilarious.
Sorry.
So okay, yeah. So I had that moment of like, wait, I'm a lesbian, and then the thought right after that was like, no, but I also find men attractive. So this is confusing,
Right.
because I'd heard of gay and lesbian. I'd never heard of bisexual. I didn't know that was an option.
Right.
So in my 9-year-old brain, I'm just like, well, I find men attractive, so I'm just going to date men. And I'm going to ignore that urge or that thought because it must just be silly. It's just because I think Felicia's pretty and everyone finds women attractive. These are my things I'm going in my head. Like,
right.
Everyone finds women attractive because women all the time, I hear women say, look how beautiful, the beautiful female body. And this is around the time when they start doing like sex ed classes and stuff.
Okay.
And so these throughout 10 years old, 11 years old, these are the things I'm just like, oh yeah, everyone finds women attractive. So it's totally normal. And I love this. And I think I just kept having crushes on best friends up
right.
until college, and I got very religious at one point, so that it was definitely not an option on the table. And it wasn't until in my 20s in New York City, I had stopped going to church for a while. I had decided I wasn't going to be a part of an organized religion because there was so much hypocrisy.
Sure.
And I had a boyfriend at 21, and I told him I wanted to have a threesome.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I had completely forgotten about that day on the playground.
Mm-hmm.
It was wiped from my memory completely.
Sure.
And so I told my boyfriend then I wanted to have a threesome. He ended up being an a-hole, so it didn't work out. And so my next boyfriend, I was continuing this of I want to have a threesome because I think it'd be fun. And see, subconsciously it's because I've always been attracted to women, and I feel like the only way I'm allowed to explore that is if a man is in the room.
Right.
So I'm 25 at this point. I've been with this really nice guy. He's a sweetheart, and there's just something missing, and I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And everything in me was like, this is such a nice guy. I should be happy to be with someone nice.
Right.
And who wants to have kids, who wants a future, all of that stuff. But when I told him I wanted to have a threesome, he said he was not interested at all.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. He said in college when he had the threesome, the girls paid no attention to him, and it did not work out. Okay. So
I mean, I guess that makes sense if he's had a bad experience, right?
Yeah, he's had a bad experience. And he was a little religious, and I was okay with him being religious because I was still agnostic or whatever, but I knew part of me was like, this might be an issue later on. And so I stayed with him because he's nice, but it started to get to a point where the only time I could climax was if I closed my eyes and imagined he was a woman.
Okay.
So at one point I'm like, okay, this isn't fair for him. I'm like imagining a different person.
Right.
And I'm clearly like suppressing something. And so, I mean, the joke I always say is that like I went to him and was like, I can't, it's getting harder and harder to imagine that you're a woman, because he's very hairy. Okay. He's a very hairy person, very big beard.
Right.
So it takes a lot of imagination. And, but then something horrible kept happening to him that year. Like, a friend died, and then something else bad happened. So then I was like, I can't break up with him during this. That would be horrible to do. Cause he's going through so much. So, but it got to a point. If you put off breaking up with someone,
right,
something's gonna go wrong.
Yeah. Okay? You go to resent them, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I went on this trip with my sisters to Aruba in September. I don't know why I needed to tell you that, but we went on this trip to Aruba, and I ended up cheating on my boyfriend.
Oh,
now,
no.
There's this like cute young, and it was still a man. I still can't bring up the courage to sleep with a woman. Okay. So, I end up cheating on him, and, I feel horrible.
Right.
This young kid, he's like 21 and I'm like 25, 26. He like gave me huge hickeys all over my neck. It was very embarrassing. Okay. Right. I very much regret that. So I had to break up with him. So, after breaking up with him, I finally go, okay, I have to pursue this, and I can't just think a boyfriend's going to help me with this. So I go, but I'm still thinking a guy's got to be in the room. I go on Thrinder. It's a
Thrinder?
Thrinder. It's a Tinder for threesomes.
What? I didn't know this was a thing. Oh, sorry.
It's now called Field.
Field.
Feeld. So I don't know if that means you're playing the field or you're feeling the D. I don't know.
Either way, not important, but go on.
Either way.
Yeah.
Either way. I get on there, and it is actually really hard to find a couple, okay? Because ugly people also like threesomes, okay? Ew, gross. But eventually I found this like beautiful couple. They've been married like 11 years, and we meet up. Things are getting hot and heavy. It's beautiful. And it was like the first time I understood what the term making love was, because I saw them like on top of me. And it was eye-opening. Okay. And it definitely opened the floodgates of like, sexual liberation. It was beautiful. It was like that scene from Lady and the Tramp.
Sure.
Except I was the spaghetti. Okay.
That is quite spot on. Very okay. I got it.
Yes, that's what I was trying to remember. So, this opened the floodgates of me like, okay, so now that I've been with a woman, I feel comfortable pursuing them individually. So after that, I try to start dating women. Okay. And I eventually go on this app called Her, and I try to, I went on this date with a woman who, of course, ends up telling me she has a husband and they're in an open relationship. Mm-hmm. And she's always been bisexual, but she never got to explore it. So now she's exploring it. But I've been so used to dating men for 26 years that I am so bad at dating women. Okay. Like on a date with a man, okay. So on a date with a man, there's like, it's easy. Okay. On a date with a woman, you have to be charming, witty, coherent. Okay. With a guy, you just show up.
Yep.
Easy peasy. So I'm ruining date after date by being weird and not like taking initiative in any way. I
have a question for you.
So,
if you don't mind, and if I'm overstepping, please, by all means, tell me to mind my business. Okay. So, so you're mentioning this pressure to be like witty and entertaining and charming, right? Yeah. Does she feel the same pressure for you, or like does she just get the opportunity to just show up?
I don't know. I guess like I'm so used to gender normative roles,
right?
That I'm not sure if it's okay for me to like want to pay for the dinner, or if we're supposed to split it, or do I make the first move, or like I didn't have expectations because I didn't know what to expect from, and I think dating other bisexual women is more difficult than if I were to date a woman who only dates women, because they're a little bit more experienced. They can be like, this is, like they can guide me a little bit better. Whereas other bisexual women are like flip floppy like me. I mean, and that, yeah, I don't know. That's my experience. I'm not going to say that's how everybody is,
right.
But that's my experience. So I eventually meet with this polyamorous couple, and so I'm dating a man and a woman at the same time.
Okay. And
with her, I'm able to like go to these parties that's very explorative and interesting, and it becomes more of a realization. I finally come out to my mom as bisexual 2 years ago. I came out to her and I was like, Mom, I'm bisexual. And her response was, oh, I thought about doing that. I was like, what? I was like, wait, you're also bisexual? And she was like, well, I never acted on it. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that explains all the divorces. She's had at least 3. Right. No, she's had 3, exactly 3. But then she goes, well, do you date those women who dress like men, Camille? I was like, if they're hot, yeah. Like, gosh, Mom. And she's like, that's disgusting. And I was like, Mom, you dated like pot belly dude, like the men she dated were ugly. Okay. So I'm like, I'm not going to take dating advice from you, Mom, Right. And she's like, do you do those menage a trois? Cause that's immoral. I was like, Mom, you used to smoke crack. Okay. Like, I think on the morality scale, I'm doing great compared to you. Okay, Mom? So, all of that being said, now, of course, I'm like openly bisexual. But I do have a boyfriend, but he's very open and willing to allow me to, or come with me to explore, or continue to date women. Right. But yeah, I think, I wish I had just accepted it early on. I feel like my entire 20s of dating, and I'm like 31 now, so it's completely different playing field of just like, I know who I am. I know I'm comfortable. I know all of that. But it took so long to get here.
Wow. Look, I'm glad that you were able to get here, because I know I feel like there are people out there who probably never get there and feel comfortable with who they truly are, no matter what it is that they're uncomfortable about. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's beautiful. Okay. So let's go back to Aruba for a second here.
Okay.
So you're in Aruba, and you did what you did.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you even consider possibly having the menage a trois there? Because I feel like a stranger would have been very down for it.
Yes. It is much harder to initiate a threesome than you would think, because you've got to have two parties that are comfortable with you.
Sure.
Now, and also, it's easy to find a couple where one of them is very down and the other one is not quite as down. But it is hard to find a couple that they're both on board equally. Because what I've noticed at a lot of these like events that I have gone to, a lot of times the man's dragging the girl and the girl's just like, you know what, if this is what will make you happy, whatever, I'll like make out with a girl in front of you, you know. But it's very rare. It's hard to find a couple where the woman and the man are both down.
Right.
In New York, it's much easier. But like, I don't think it would be easy for me to find that on a ship in Aruba. And it just so happened that this kid was like, I keep saying kid, but he was 21. But
thank God.
He was 21. But to me, I never dated anyone younger than me. I was 25, right. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's 4 years younger than me. You know, when I was 20, I dated a 40-year-old. So for me, this was like weird. He was very flirty and cute, and just like my type.
Yeah.
To a T. He was my type to a T. So it just happened. It was naughty. Okay. Things happened out on the dock. Wide open.
It's like Titanic moment.
Yeah. But out, like, if anyone shined a flashlight onto the dock, they would have seen things.
No,
it was an act of rebellion. Okay.
No, look, I get it. And whatever happened with your friendship with Felicia? Like, was it just done at that very moment and never again did you speak?
It was a little back and forth here and there. It was definitely like, we're never going to talk about this and we're never going to tell anyone we did this.
Sure.
We had mutual friends later in like 5th and 6th grade, but we rarely hung out just us anymore. If we hung out, it was a group setting. So yeah, it did end up kind of ruining our friendship altogether. Just her being like completely like, no, we're not going to play anymore.
Because I always wonder, like, okay, like I get the pretense and the premise here, right? But I feel like at 9 years old, you kind of know what you're doing. So I almost wonder if she was going through similar struggles.
Yeah, I think she probably was, and didn't want to admit it, and I didn't want to admit it either, but I was at least like open to continuing secretly, you know?
Of course.
Yeah.
I also will say that things must happen a little quicker in Utah than they happen in New York, because I definitely did not get sex ed till the 6th grade. And yeah.
No, I know other people who were like not as early as I was, for sure.
Okay. And I was at 9 years old. I was definitely not trying to kiss anybody, let alone girls. You know, girls still had cooties.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was always very sexually aware. I don't, but I will say, while I was so sexually, I didn't climax until I was 21, and I never masturbated either.
Well,
I didn't until I was 21.
There's still women in their 40s who've never climaxed, so that's not really. Yeah. Yeah.
Good point. Well, by themselves, they have.
Well, yes. I hope. I don't know.
I hadn't by myself or anything at all till I was 21 because I was so afraid to actually explore in a healthy manner, you know?
No, I understand. It kind of reminds me of, I don't want to put any spoilers out there, but have you seen Borat 2 yet?
I saw the beginning.
Okay, there's a scene that addresses this. There's a scene that addresses this. That's why I thought of it immediately.
Okay.
This very issue.
Yeah.
All right. No, that's perfectly fine. What happened in college? Because for a lot of people, college is 4 years of exploration, you know? Yeah. So I get that you maybe had not been completely honest with yourself yet, but given all the, I guess, opportunities, you know, like how come it didn't happen then?
So I went to a 2-year musical theater conservatory.
Got it.
So it wasn't a full 4-year experience. It was very intense, nonstop rehearsal, performance. And I was an RA, so I didn't party too much. And I would say the majority of the school were straight women and gay men. That's the demographic at my school. And so I don't know if I knew any other women who liked women there, other than like a teacher. I knew a teacher who was a lesbian, but that was it. And also I was still going to church. I was still like in this mindset of like, that's sinning and I don't want to go to hell. So even though it was a more open church, like that, there were people there who were openly gay, it still felt like guilt, you know, it felt naughty, bad. Yeah.
So, let's jump into this a little quickly here. If you could go back, what are the things that you change about your story?
Okay. First of all, the second I have that epiphany on the playground, I go, I like boys and girls. Yep. And that's how it is. And I'm just like, I just know it and I'm cool with it and I'm comfortable with it. Once I have that epiphany, I tell my mom, I ask my sister about it. I become open about it and non-apologetic. I become the bisexual advocate of Murray, Utah. Okay. This young girl who just knows and she's proud and she does not care what you have to say. So I go into junior high and I'm like known and I'm able to start a group in middle school where of like queer people, bi, gay, lesbian, we have our own little club and a nice little support group, and we're able to talk freely amongst each other and like feel okay and feel accepted. And this leads me into high school where we didn't have anything like having a club and like just being this person that inspires other people to just be themselves and be like no fearless. And I moved to New York City, of course, and because I've been so open and I've been such a courageous advocate, my mom realizes she's bisexual and I give her courage to accept it. And then she finally finds somebody she loves, dates women, marries a woman, and this like changes the whole trajectory of her life because she's finally happy. She doesn't have to do drugs anymore. And I because I'm feeling so free, I don't have so many moments in my 20s where I'm second guessing myself and I become a comedian and I like kill it as this openly bisexual comedian since I was 20. I started comedy when I was 20, but I was so not open. And by now, 31, guess what? I'd have my own TV show about being a bisexual woman and the exploration in Utah. Okay, being bisexual in Utah. And just being a big advocate and person out there making a difference.
You know, you might be onto something that could be a show premise. There's an angle there.
Yeah. Oh, and I definitely dated Kristen Stewart, and that upped my celebrity game. Okay.
Of course. So let me ask you this: how do you feel like your relationship with your mother would have been a little differently if you had the conversation at a much younger age?
I mean, I did go back and forth. Like, would she have freaked out and been like, "You're going to hell, so you can't do that," or would it spark something more open? Because she did always love me. So it comes to a point of like, would she be like those super religious zealots that chooses their religion over their child? Or would she have chosen her child? I'd like to believe she would choose me and it would open everything. We'd be closer. It wouldn't have been so like, I can't tell her things because she'll tell me I'm going to hell. You know? I think we would have been closer. Definitely.
Okay. That's fair. Before I let you go, because unfortunately our time here is starting to come towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
We have a tradition on this podcast that we like to end every single one with a quick childhood story that puts a smile on your face or something that makes you feel happy. Do you have one that you could share with us?
Ooh. Okay. Every year before school, my sister was like the thrift queen. Okay. She would take me. There was one specific year I remember because it was before 5th grade, and she took me to this thrift store and was like, pick anything you want. And no one had told me that before. Just like, go into the store, put everything you like into a cart, and I'll buy it. And we did this, and it only ended up being like $20. Okay, right. Store. And this is before thrifting was cool. So everything was $2 or $1. And I got all these cool outfits, and I went home and we tried on outfits together and we planned this outfit. Yeah. She's like 11 years older than me. So she's kind of like a mom. And I just remember having so much fun with her, planning outfits, and I felt so special and cared for. Yeah.
That's really adorable. Thank you for sharing. If you don't mind, I'd like to share one with you because you remind me of it, but it's quite the opposite of what happened to you. I remember being a young kid. I must have been like maybe 5 years old, maybe 6, and going into a supermarket. And I remember growing up, there were these TV commercials for like these like Dunkaroo little like graham crackers.
Yes. I love Dunkaroos, yeah.
Yeah, they were delicious. Like, you would dump them in, like, the little frosting, and it had the sprinkles in it. And, like, I remember I'd been watching these commercials for, like, months now. And we walk into a supermarket, and I see it on the rack, like, right as you're about to check out. I'm with my babysitter, and I turn to her, and I grab it. I was like, can we buy these? Like, I would really like one of these. And she snapped at me, and she goes, no, put that back. It's too expensive. That costs $8. I remember as a 5-year-old having no understanding of the relativity of money. I go, okay, So $8 is expensive. Got it.
Yes. Oh man.
Yeah. So that's I don't know why your story inspired that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, before I let you go, also the other tradition we have on this podcast is we like to pick a charity or an organization to highlight at the end of every episode. Do you have one that you're particularly passionate about?
Yes. So with everything going on with COVID-19, certain communities are affected really drastically, deeply with this. And I was introduced to this organization, and it's called Families to Families Ahuba Hassan, and it's an emergency assistance for the families of the Navajo Nation, and basically just helping to raise money for people who have caught COVID-19, their families, people who lost jobs because of the pandemic. And this helps them like with essential needs, food, water, fuel, just essential needs. And yeah.
Do you have would you be willing to provide us with the link so that I could go ahead and drop it in the description?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Revisionary podcast, Camille. Where can we follow you?
You can find me on Instagram at Camille Comedy, on TikTok at Camille Comedy 2.
Ooh, someone got to number 1 before you?
I guess so.
I guess you and other Camille should just duel it out. Have like a TikTok duel. Whoever does the better video gets it.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm down. All right, other Camille, let's fight.
There's the challenge. Notice I didn't say fight. I just meant comedy videos. She took it to the extreme of violence, but here we are. Do you have any last words for our Revisionaries?
Oh man, be yourselves, okay? And if you have a little voice in the back of your head that says, "Hey, you might like this thing, or you might be this thing," instead of ignoring it, explore it. Unless it's like, evil.
All right. Well said. Well, thank you for coming on the Revisionary podcast. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
The Revisionary Podcast.
Okay. Well, what a way to kick off June. I'm into it. It's funny. Like, I don't know how to explain this to you, but like, I was just vibing with her. Like, it's just, there's certain people, and I'm sure you guys have heard it like that. Like, I feel like it's that instant chemistry. I've really enjoyed sitting down and talking to her, and I don't know. Like, she's really cool. I look forward to continuously hanging out in the future because she's awesome. I'm glad that I had a chance to know her, and thank you, Madeline, for introducing us. And to you, the Revisionaries, I want to say thank you again for all that you do, and make sure that you support her charity. And as always, thank you for listening.
This is the